A 13-year-old boy finds a human skull in his backyard. By the end of the summer, police uncover over 10,000 bones belonging to at least 25 victims. This is the story of what really happened at Fox Hollow Farms and why so many were ignored. This is Murder We Spoke. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
And today we're honoring the lives lost in one of Indiana's most horrific cases. Matt, have you ever heard of Fox Hollow Farms or Herb Baumeister?
I don't think so. This is somebody that I don't think I'm familiar with at all.
It is a very, not well-known serial killer. I would call him one of the most infamous, but something overshadowed it where it didn't exactly get to the public eye. So let's get into it. Okay, so Herb Baumeister, he was born in Indianapolis, Indiana on April 7th, 1947. The oldest of 4 children born to anesthesiologist Dr. Herbert Eugene Baumeister and Elizabeth Baumeister. The Baumeister children were reportedly normal, but he began exhibiting antisocial behavior by the onset of an adolescence. So friends would relate to the people doing the interviews that he would urinate on his teachers' desks.
Oh.
Like, he would do a lot of stuff for attention. He would play with dead animals.
Oh, Dahmer.
In his teens, Baumeister's behavior caused his father to have him put in a mental institute. And he got examined also, and he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. But he did not receive any further treatment.
That's wild, because that was around the time where you could honestly have any minor thing going on, and they'll just be like, up to the ward with you.
Yep, they're like, get out.
Up, get out of there.
But
Up, you fought with your husband, get to the ward.
it almost felt like this could have been, honestly prevented, because this wouldn't be his, last time being in a psych ward. He was put in at least 2 times that we know of. One later in his life and one now. So this is a picture of him around that age that he would pee on his teachers' desks and think it was funny to play with dead animals and stuff like that. So in 1965, Baumeister attended the Indiana University for a semester before dropping out, but returned in 1967. As an adult, Baumeister drifted through side jobs marked by strong work ethic. He was known as a strong figure of the community. He did have his little quirks that people thought he was weird. But he did get married, believe it or not. And he married a girl named Julia Salter in November 1971. And they had 3 kids.
Wow.
But here's the twist. They may have had 3 kids, and you would think you have 3 kids. You have a very close relationship. Everything's going well, But it is reported that they only were intimate 6 times over a 25-year relationship.
What if he just didn't remember all the other times? It was mind-blowingly
No,
good?
this was his wife going, no, we only had sex 6 times, and 3 of those times produced kids. I went, wow, okay, well, that's a good percentage.
Yeah, that is pretty good. 50-50.
Yeah, and so 6 months after his marriage, Baumeister was committed to a psych ward by his father. For 2 months, his wife said that he was hurting and needing help. So I do have a link here to a YouTube video. We actually have an interview, very weird, strange interview.
Whoa.
About neighbors being angry about the way that people were painting the street, and how this interview is about how Herb stopped and he took a picture of a dead animal that they painted over, and he was upset. He was like, have respect for the animal. That's not right to do that. Have some respect. So I will play this right now, and we'll have it up on the screen. And I'll play it right now.
Indiana Department of Transportation maintains over 11,000 miles of roadway, and we take those miles of roadway each year, and this is just an isolated incident that happened.
Herb Baumeister of Carmel.
Oh my God.
Said my son, they're gonna get that raccoon with a spray gun, and sure enough, it just sprayed right over his face. And man, I didn't even do it. I had no effort to, get it out of the way. See, I've never pulled one with me, so I took a shot of the thing.
A raccoon which met its demise on the yellow line.
This is his thing.
Yeah. He's like, yes, this is going into the memory bank right now. Ew. What a quirky man.
All right, so that's essentially his interview and one of the interviews that we have of him. What would you feel about that?
I feel like that's the weirdest thing to complain about because it's, I don't know. It's like, really? Who's going to get out their spray mobile and like
Move aside a dead
use a
animal.
poker? And I don't even think they have anything like that in there. Unless he's like inventing a little arm that comes out and parked to the side. And then it goes, moves the dead animal out.
The true crime community actually is very upset about this clip.
Really?
Only because.
Especially if he's playing with dead animals in his past.
It's only
and
because of the
everything.
way he describes. Like he goes, have a little dignity. This animal deserved some, like a good resting place. Like he probably wouldn't like that. So the way he describes that, and we'll get into why people feel that way. So as an example, I have pictures of him, his wife, and there is pictures of his kids nowadays, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
those are his kids, not all of them, but at least two of them that they have pictures of. So let's start from the beginning here. Okay? So Baumeister borrowed $4,000 from his mom and opened a thrift store. It was called Save a Lot. It's a chain from where they are. In 1988, the organization's cleanliness and full stock of quality used goods were distinguished. So it's pretty much a thrift shop. In 1991, with the success of his business, Baumeister moved his family onto an 18-acre ranch in Westfield, which he called Fox Hollow Farms. So as you can see by the pictures, huge property.
It is. It's like the Papa John's property.
It's huge. It's like a mansion. When you see the inside, it's a mansion. So you can see he was doing pretty good at this time. So this, again, is more views from where he is. This is just like his car garage, where they have an apartment above it. Yes, and then that's his house, which is bigger when you look at it from the front, but it was hard to find some of these photos. Okay, so now we get started. So between 1992 and 1994, numerous gay men were reported missing in the Midwest. In November 1994, Baumeister's 13-year-old son found a skull in the Fox Hollow Farms property in the woods. Baumeister claims the skull belonged to his collection from his dad, who was, again, an anesthesiologist and did collect medical equipment. So his son's on this property. He goes up to the mom and says, I found this, and it's a human skull. I found this. And so his wife does go up to him and go, what is this? Like, you have something to say? What is this? And he goes, a raccoon got into the garage and pulled the skull out and must have dragged it into the forest. I'll get rid of it. Don't worry about it. So not long after this discovery, the investigators with Marin County Sheriff Department of Indianapolis, their police department received a tip, which we'll go into this a little later, a tip about a missing person in 1992. The witness reports seeing a man named Brian Smart leave an Indianapolis gay bar with Roger Goodlett, who had disappeared after that incident in 1992. So in 1995, a witness again saw Brian Smart leaving a gay bar. He followed Smart and wrote down the license plate number of his car. Police identified this car registered to Herb Baumeister. So Brian Smart was his pseudonym. And most people in the LBGT community at this time went by pseudonyms because
they don't
even in the
want to get
90s, even in the 90s, they were still getting very discriminated against. Like, we'll explain a little bit more in this, but it was like they weren't, like, they were seen as, like, undesirable.
Second-class citizens and stuff. Yeah.
And this will play, like, a big part to why so many people, and we'll talk about it, why such things happen.
Oh, now I'm recalling, yes.
Okay, so in January 4th, 1996, several months after the police questioned his wife about the possible link between her husband and the disappearance of several men, Julia Baumeister filed for divorce. So, about time. But, so the kids would, I'm going to include some details that I didn't exactly put in this. So, his wife and his kids would go away for the whole summer. They go somewhere else, and they go on vacation for the whole summer, leaving
And he stays
him there.
back. He's like, I got to work.
Leaving him at the house. No, like, it was almost like she wanted to go. Like, it was, but, so he had the whole house to himself between these periods of time. So he was able to do whatever he wanted. He was able to live his true, authentic life, whether good or bad. He was able to live that lifestyle, and it was easier for him. So they get divorced. She goes to, well, in early June, so from January to June, she informed investigators of the skull that her son found on the property. So because of the skull, they searched the farm, the Foxhole farm property, while he was out of town on June 24th, 1996. So before we get into what actually happened when they searched it, I want to give you some pictures of where certain things happen. So the pool's going to come into play. He loved mannequins. Very weird. In his store, they have interviews with people on, there's a really good documentary on Hulu that explains a lot of this in more detail than I'm going. New revelations. He loved mannequins. In his store, Save a Lot, he would put mannequins all in the back rooms, but also in the bathroom. And the people working there would be like, can you move these mannequins out of the bathroom? Like, I can go to the bathroom and the toilet, but it's really weird having mannequins stare at me. He's like, no, we're not touching them. He had mannequins all around his pool area. The farthest picture over here is actually his pool now, because somebody lives in the house now.
Dang,
The pictures over here are the older pictures I couldn't get all the mannequins. They didn't have pictures of all the mannequins, but these are just some of the mannequins that he had at the time that this crime went down. So the police now are investigating. They start investigating the forest, and so then they find over 10,000 charred and decomposed bones in the forest, and bone fragments, along with broken down handcuffs and shotgun shells. The University of Indianapolis Forensic Lab tested and cataloged all evidence by September 12th. The forensic team identified the remains of 4 individuals. We have Richard Hamilton, Manuel Reisens, Stephen Howell, and Roger Goodlett. Each victim were gay men who disappeared. The disappearance coincided with the period of 1993 to 1994, when Baumeister's wife and children were out of town. So it all lined up to when they met. Missing was when his wife and kids were out of town. So these are actual photos
that's crazy.
Them finding, so there's a bone here and the guy holding up a whole femur bone here. You should have seen the area that they taped off. It was almost like they were doing like an archaeological dig. Like, it was the whole forest, Matt. It was 18 acres that the person living there right now is still finding bones.
That's nuts.
They have, and we'll get to it, but only half of the bones have been identified. Not even half, a quarter of the people have been identified. There's a lot of them just sitting there.
That's
and
crazy.
We'll get into that there was a lot of
You think they'd be able to
stereotypes.
like zoom or like do some DNA like
So
comparison?
here's the thing: they can do it. They did do it to some of them, and then the state stepped in and said, "We're not paying for this anymore." How cold the state was, they said, "We're not paying for this anymore. If the families want to know this is their relative, they can pay for the DNA
Oh my
testing."
God.
This is right after this happened. So this is very shocking to the community. They didn't expect this to happen. Nobody did. And people were going missing, and there was a lot of people within the LGBT community who were screaming and yelling about it before this happened. So they were like, my friend has been missing. Like, I haven't seen my friend in days and days. Like, other people would be like, my dad is missing. Like, you're not going to investigate? Like, I know exactly the guy that he left with. You're not going to investigate it? So these are the first victims they find. So all of these pictures on screen are the first victims they find. It's sad. It's very sad. Like, it was very hard for me to do this investigation because the families are still alive, like very much alive, and very much like are involved, and like it was very sad. It even gets me a little emotional talking about it. It was very sad watching some of this stuff, and it really like took the wind out of me. So I took breaks throughout researching this, but we're going to continue in June 30th, 1996. After learning the police had issued a warrant for his arrest, unfortunately, he fled to. They gave him time to flee to Canada.
My God.
They didn't arrest him immediately after finding bones on his property.
Like why didn't they
They
get him right away?
found bones on his property, and they linked his car to it. No arrest. He was allowed to stay outside, no probation, no monitor. They didn't even have a cop watching him. So he went to Canada, and unfortunately, he self-exited in the Pine Province Park in Grand Bends, Ontario, on July 3rd. In a 3-page suicide note, he mentioned remorse over the breakup of his marriage and financial issues with his business, because his business later they found out was breaking down, and it wasn't going as well as he wanted to. He made no mentions of anybody found on the property or that he felt bad about anything or any missing people. He did not. They said he had no remorse. He only wrote about his family and his financial issues, and that was it. So it's very hard because they keep going into the investigation. So over the next 2 years, investigators pieced together the extent of his crimes. The forensics investigators found 11 DNA profiles among the remains that helped they helped identify more victims. So Johnny Bearer, Jeff Allen Jones, Alan Wayne, Broussard, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, and Michael Kern. The investigators determined Baumeister generally targeted white men between the ages of 14 and 46 with ties to the LGBTQ community. He would choose his victims at Indianapolis gay bars called Our Place, which is still actually a standing gay bar there. It's very popular. They even have videos of it being like very, very popular. They would bring to Fox Hollow Farm, where he would strangle and decompose their bodies. So this was his MO, and he would do a lot of this by his pool. He would swim at them. He was very into autoasphyxia. He would make them strangle him, and then he would strangle them and go further than that. So he was very much into that. And we'll get into it in a little bit. There is a few people who can corroborate exactly what he did. But for now, these are the rest of the victims that they were able to identify. There are actually more too, but it was very hard finding certain pictures of people that didn't want to be, shown. So these are the next people they found in the initial search. Could he have killed more? Okay, so this is a whole nother video in itself. So there is a theory going around. No, not even a theory. They have linked him to this. So they linked him to the I-70 strangler.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so he was in, it falls in such a, like it makes sense place. So the I-70 strangler stopped strangling people when he bought the house. So Baumeister's victim count increased in 1998 when investigators linked him to the I-70 strangler murders of the 1980s. Between 1980 and 1991, the bodies of 11 men were found, mainly nude, in streams, in rural places, and in specifically the intersection of I-70. The cause of death was strangulation because the victim's profile and cause of death aligned with Baumeister and the way he would do it. The investigators intensified their searches for the connection between him. But right now they said, no, that's him. So that
crazy.
case in itself is a whole nother video worth of legs. So now we got upwards of 20 people that they can identify.
Jeez.
That's not even the
crazy.
people they haven't identified yet. So that's right now. So the big question that a lot of documentaries had was think about how far he would have to drag from the house to the forest, because that's where he would leave them. So they said he would need help. He would need help in this. And this new documentary that's out on Hulu really goes into it. They have interviews with this guy. This guy's still alive and out of jail. Like he was the whistleblower that essentially got him caught. So the one that I mentioned earlier, he went right to the cops and said he did this, he did that, he did this, he tried to do this to me, he didn't do. So his name is Mark Goldyear. In 1996, Mark Goldyear told authorities that he met Brian at a gay bar in August and visited his home in 1994. And later learned he was Herb Baumeister's, essentially his boyfriend. So the man, long believed to be the sole survivor of Fox Hollow Farm. So this is what everybody believed. He's a hero. So what he did was he went to his house. They played around with auto asphyxia. For some reason, Herb Baumeister left him alone. They went swimming, and he confessed to him that he killed 53 people. And that's more than what we have here, okay? So he confessed to him, I killed 53 people. This is how I did it. This guy continued to see this guy after this fact. So he drops him home, and they continue to see this guy. So this is him now. Kind of creepy. Can't look at him. He's very creepy in the interview when you actually see him. He's very religious too. He's like a zealot, like what you would call a zealot. So while they're interviewing him, he takes off his shoes at the door. This is somebody else's house, but he acts really comfortable, like he's comfortable there at the house when he claims he's only been there once. They're comfortable. They said he took off his shoes and socks, like he was sitting there. They're like, this guy hasn't been back to this house in years. All of a sudden he's getting really comfortable, and he's kind of, but people are very wary about this guy, because this guy is very like, I did this, and no, I didn't do this. I did this, I knew this, no, I didn't do this. He's very hush-hush, but in this interview, he kind of incriminates himself, but not enough, because there's no evidence of him doing it. So he later, in this documentary, confessed that he lied about what actually happened that night. So he comes out in this interview and man, I lied about everything. Like none of that stuff. I never warned people that he was coming. Like I lied about that to get him caught. He goes, I told the police he attacked me. He didn't attack me. Nothing like that. Among his shocking claims, Goldyear told NBC News Studio he was never attacked by Baumeister, that he had actually drugged the serial killer. So this guy drugged the serial killer.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And that they met not just one time, but countless times over the next 2 years, right up to Baumeister's self-exit.
You think he would have been like, why are you in Canada?
Yeah. No, here's, I'll tell you something after I read, I'm telling you, there's so much to this that my brain was like fuzzy after it. He claimed Baumeister confessed to him that he killed and strangled 56 victims in total, and that he never showed him the burn pile of bodies. So there was a burn pile that he had on the property that he would put like tree limbs and broken down stuff, but he would hide bodies in there. He would put bodies in there, like in the open like that, like bodies. Bodies in the forest. They found like shotgun shells. They found handcuffs. They found like, they weren't sure where there's still a lot of blanks because he did self-exit, so they didn't have time to interview him, and he didn't get a trial. So that's why he's not as well known. So they don't really know exactly what's going on, but they are still finding bodies on it. So he claims Baumeister confessed to him that he killed all these people and that he even showed him the burn piles and bodies in the backyard on his 18-acre estate. Another exorbitant claim, Goodyear says that he was actually with Baumeister on that very day in 1996 when authorities they came in on Fox Hollow Farms and discovered thousands of human remains. In fact, Baumeister was at Goodyear's home in Indianapolis, and they were watching the TV together while they were searching his property. And he claims he was trying to take me down with him, Goodyear says. But guess what? He's fucking dead, ain't he? That's how he said it. And they said, do you think he self-exited himself? And he goes, his hands were too swollen. How would he have pulled the trigger? And he goes, nope, just kidding. I'm just kidding about that. Oh, and this thing, I'm just kidding. So people have a theory that he killed Baumeister. And he was with him in Canada and killed him because after this happened, he immediately left town. So Goodyear immediately left the vicinity of where he was. After telling the cops and that stuff, he left. He left and they don't know where he went, but Baumeister also left. So they also saw that his hands were really swollen from like stress and stuff, but Goodyear claims that his hands were too swollen to even pull the trigger.
That's strange. I feel
That
like
statement right there is damning evidence in itself.
I feel like triggers should be pretty
But
big.
your hand's swollen. Your fingers are swollen.
Even if you,
No, I don't
I mean, I got tiny hands anyway.
Yeah.
So if
But-
my fingers swelled up a little bit, I think I'd still have room.
There's so much more to his interview. I don't really, listening to him made me feel gross. Like, I was like, I can't believe this guy, they didn't interview this guy more. They were just kind of like open and closed because he self-exited himself. That's it, we're done. That's how I felt like the investigators
Yeah, it's kinda
did a
like
very
case
poor
closed.
job about
Yeah.
this, like very. So the updates in the case, because these men were LGBTQ, the police and the government seemed uninterested to identify the bodies. They told the families if they wanted to know if it was their family member, they would have to pay for it out of pocket.
That's nuts.
And then in the early 2020s, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office of Indianapolis Metro Police Department for Missing Persons Unit and the Indiana State Police and the University of Indianapolis renewed their investigation into Baumeister's case. In December 4th, 2022, a team of 11 cadaver dogs searched the property and discovered one bone and several locations for further investigation. In 2023, the FBI analyzed thousands of bone fragments believed to be from at least 25 other individuals to identify the other victims. So there isn't a whole lot of updates. There is an update. They did put a memorial on whether in the town or on the property, it wasn't too clear. There's a memorial. They did also uncover one other person very recently.
That's nuts.
They have the story in the documentary, but the story is this guy's aunt is dying, and her son was one of the missing people that they weren't able to identify. And he was like, she has terminal brain cancer. I'm going to find my cousin that I've never met, my cousin, and I'm going to make sure she knows where her son is before she dies. Before she dies. So what actually happened was that he got in contact with this cop that's now working on the case. Very good cop. He is now going through all of the cases as much as he can without the state telling him to be quiet. Because right now the state's telling him, like, do you want to get us in trouble? Why you keep opening this? But he said, I want to identify, my aunt's son. So they took her DNA swab. And it's so fun. The story's not funny, but it was very, very emotional. They went into the room because they just have these remains in a room in a bags in the university. They took the first bag and they brought it to the lab. They just chose a random bag, and they identified as that remains being his cousin.
Wow.
Immediately, the first one they grabbed, they said, no way that actually happened. But they were able to find out that he was one of the victims. And they were able to get his mom justice for him as much as you can. And some of the families buried whatever, because they didn't find the whole body. They found
whatever remains they were able to collect and whatnot.
It was very, very bad, the scene. Cops even talk about, like, you don't understand. Everywhere we went in that forest, we stepped on bones. Like, everywhere where we walked through that forest. So, and then they think he might even have more because he did have a burn pit. And they think after his son started found a skull, he started burning them. So they do have bone fragments from the burn pit also. It is very disturbing on, like, how much they haven't done. And how much they still can do. Like, the bodies are still sitting there, or the bones are still sitting there, unidentified. And that's why it's very important, if you would know anybody within that community or in that area, to, like, maybe donate your DNA to CODIS. CODIS helps identify missing people and John and Jane Does. And that's how the boy in the box was solved. That's how so many cases are being solved, because people are submitting their DNA and they're finding ancestral links to other people who are related to them. So if you live in that area, I would suggest you help and donate. Maybe it's somebody that you don't even know, like, is, like, in your family. You could help somebody find out what happened to the loved one, because you have to think about it. Your relative just disappears and you don't even know what happened. Like, help give people, like, some peace of mind. And so, any thoughts, Matt?
It's crazy. It's a mix of, like, a bunch of different serial killers, because it's like the Gacy with the strangulation and whatnot. So Dahmer, I mean, both of them were both of the gay community and whatnot. But I don't know. It's just, well, and even a little bit of Albert Fish with the whole urine stuff.
Yeah, it was just very shocking how, like, recent it was. Like, it's in the 90s, 93,
Yeah,
94.
that's pretty
That's
close. That's
that
like
far
when
away.
we were youngins.
Yeah, when I was born. Essentially. Like, it's just very...
And you think, like, we would have seen something, even, coming out on the news or something, if all this kind of, like, culminated in 1996.
I even
where
talked
it's
to my
like,
mom, and my mom's like, I've never heard of this case. And
Yeah,
I went, yeah, because
that's-
it wasn't mainly advertised because he didn't get a trial.
That's wild that it got pushed so far under.
Yeah, and it's like, instead of taking responsibility for your actions, I know it's horrible, he just ran.
That ran, unalived himself.
Yeah, and it's like, I know he had mental health problems, and I know this could have been maybe helped. I don't even know if you could help somebody like that at that point. You know?
think, like, the wife would have
You think?
like, you had a little more of an inkling about what was going on, about, like, oh, what'd you do while I was away, or something
He
like
was
that.
living in the house, and you would think the kid, like, the forest, like, the kids don't
Yeah,
play
that
in
would
the
have been,
forest.
like, a little strange
Like, I grew
from
up
getting a
upstate.
human skull.
I grew up upstate, and all I was in the forest. Like, I was a little like a spider monkey. Like, I was climbing on trees. Like, you think that the sun wouldn't have found more than just that? Like, really? Like, it was everywhere, Matt. So,
Then the smell, like, even
smell.
him living on a large property and whatnot.
It was
You
large.
still think that would have.
it was large, but you could see, like, when the trees, like, when it wasn't summer, and the tree, like the leaves fell, you could see other people's houses. Like it wasn't like, it may have been
wasn't
13 acres,
isolated.
but it was like 13 acres like long and not like wide like this. So there was neighbors there, but it's like, you know, I really suggest taking the time and watching the documentary on Hulu. It's in parts. Very interesting.
It sounds
very
like an interesting case, and just with this, like, you know,
It's
it
brand
being
new,
somebody
too.
that I never
Yeah.
really heard of and whatnot.
It's brand new, and it really takes the time to interview the victims' families, which not a lot of documentaries do. They interview a lot of the
And
victims'
it's
families.
nice that it's recent enough that they're able to even do that.
Yeah, they were
because-
able to bring the families there to the house, which they've never been,
Jeez.
to go to in the forest and walk the forest, because they're like, this is where my like brother. A lot of them are like brothers, sisters. This is where they are, like as close as I can get to them. And in that documentary, they did bring dogs also in to see.
Wow.
There was some interesting stuff. So I suggest that. If you found this video thought-provoking, please consider liking and sharing it. I encourage you to comment below with your thoughts of any theories you might have. Engage in these and discuss and help piece together even the most perplexing puzzles. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification button so you never miss out on the next true crime exploration as we continue to shine a light on cases and their victims. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and thank you for watching.
And text your friends who you're leaving with,
Yes, please.
or family as well.
Stay safe.